What if letting go wasn't weakness, but the final act of strength? What if the most powerful move you could ever make wasn't chasing, fixing, or proving anything, but simply walking away without a word? That's what radical detachment is. It's not bitterness. It's not coldness. It's clarity. It's the moment you stop needing their apology, their explanation, their energy, and realize the only thing you ever needed was you. See, when you finally let go, not halfway, not as a game, not pretending, you unlock something rare. Freedom. The kind that can't be touched. The kind that can't be manipulated. You're no longer waiting for closure. You are the closure. You're no longer stuck in the loops of what was or what could have been. You've stepped into the reality of what is, and what is peace. Letting go doesn't mean you never cared. It means you care differently now, not about them, about your focus, your boundaries, your power. They expected you to stay emotionally tethered, to orbit them, to feel stuck. But you didn't spiral. You disappeared into your discipline. You accepted it, owned it, moved forward with quiet force. And now, they don't know what you're thinking, how you feel, or where you even stand. That mystery. That's the echo of your detachment. Stoicism teaches this. Freedom begins where attachment ends. And dark psychology. It shows us that once you're no longer accessible emotionally, you become unforgettable. Not because they love you, but because they can't reach you anymore. If you've stopped looking back, if you've found strength in silence, if you've finally let go for real, hit that like button. Subscribe to Stoic Blessing. Turn on notifications and comment below, "I release to rise." Now let's begin. Number 1. You stop reacting and start responding. Letting go shifts everything. The chaos, the triggers, the emotional swings, they lose their grip. You stop living in reaction mode. No more over-analyzing messages. No more chasing answers. No more matching energy to stay relevant. You slow down, breathe, and respond from a place of power. That's the first thing they notice, your stillness. Not as a tactic, but as your new baseline. They try to provoke something, a post, a breadcrumb, some subtle play to see if they still have your attention. But you don't bite. Not because you're trying to seem cool, but because you're truly over it. Your focus has shifted inward. You don't need their chaos to feel alive. You don't need their reaction to feel seen. You found something stronger than attention, emotional control. Stoicism teaches that the moment between stimulus and response is where your power lives. You don't let them steal that anymore. They don't get to dictate how your day feels. They don't get to interrupt your peace. You choose how you show up. You choose if you respond, and most of the time now, the answer is silence. From a dark psychology lens, this is unsettling to them. When someone is used to controlling your emotions and suddenly they get nothing, no anger, no sadness, no chase, just stillness, they panic because they don't know what you're thinking. They don't know if they still matter. That loss of predictability creates tension. And that tension, that's your edge. You've stopped giving them emotional fuel. You've taken your power back without saying a word. And that's when the shift begins, when reaction dies and you take control of the narrative. Number 2. Their absence stops feeling like a loss. At first, the silence feels loud. Their absence echoes through your day, the moments you used to share, the routines that had their name written into them. It stings, and that sting tricks you into thinking you've lost something essential. But as you sit in it, as you don't run from it, something changes. The emptiness stops hurting. It starts feeling like freedom. You realize their absence isn't a hole, it's space, and space is powerful. It gives you room to think, move, build. It gives you time to confront the parts of yourself that needed them in the first place. And once you stop resisting that stillness, You see it for what it really is, a reset, not the end of something, but the beginning of everything that's about to grow. Stoicism makes it clear, nothing external truly belongs to you, not attention, not affection, not people. The minute you anchor your peace to something or someone you can't control, you give your power away. Letting go means reclaiming that power, not by replacing them, but by removing the belief that you needed them to be whole in the first place. And from a dark psychology standpoint, here's what happens next. The moment you stop feeling the loss, they start feeling it. The emotional pull they used to count on, it's gone. That energy they used to draw from, dry. And what terrifies them most isn't your anger, it's your indifference. Your peace now feels like punishment to someone who thought you'd never move without them. You no longer see them as something missing, you see them as something no longer needed. And that shift, internal, permanent, silent, is where your detachment becomes your dominance. Number 3, you realize peace is better than proof. There was a time you needed them to understand. You wanted them to know how much they hurt you. You wanted closure, validation, maybe even an apology. You thought that if they just saw your side, if they just acknowledged what they did, you could finally move on. But here's the truth. Chasing proof keeps you stuck. Proof won't bring peace, but peace, when it's real, kills the need for proof. You let go of the obsession with being seen, with being right, with being understood. You realize that the person who couldn't value you when they had you is not qualified to validate your experience now. And when that clicks, when you stop needing them to get it, you feel something rare, weightlessness. That heavy emotional armor, you drop it, because you no longer need justice, you found freedom. Stoicism teaches us that external approval is unstable. If your peace depends on someone else's recognition, you've already lost. Real strength is when you walk away with your head high, not because you won, but because you didn't lower yourself to beg for clarity. You didn't fold. You chose yourself, not to make a statement, but to protect your peace. And from a dark psychology angle, this is where things flip. When they realize you're not seeking a reaction, not trying to prove anything, not clinging to their perception, it rattles them. Because power isn't about who speaks loudest. It's about who can walk away without saying a thing. You didn't let go because you gave up. You let go because you no longer needed proof of your worth. You found it in your silence, in your stillness, in your refusal to explain to someone who lost the right to hear you. Peace became your answer. And that answer says everything. Number 4, you no longer replay the story. You used to rewind it all like a movie on loop, the last conversation, the way they looked at you before they changed, the shift in tone, the signs you missed, the moment they stopped choosing you. It haunted you. Not because you didn't see the truth, but because part of you still wanted to rewrite it, still wanted a different ending. That mental replay, it kept you trapped in a story they no longer cared to finish. But now, you stopped hitting play. You let the story end. Not because you got the perfect conclusion, but because you realized the act of replaying was just emotional self-sabotage. It wasn't about healing, it was about holding on. And holding on disguised as analysis is how most people stay stuck. But you chose clarity. You chose closure without a conversation. Stoicism says, accept reality exactly as it is, not as you wish it to be. That means no mental edits, no what-ifs, just truth. Brutal, clean, and liberating. You stopped negotiating with the past and started investing in the present. And when the old scenes creep up, you don't entertain them. You observe them, and then you let them pass. Like clouds. No attachment. No resistance. From a dark psychology standpoint, the power here is lethal. because the story that used to drain you is the same one they thought would keep you tied to them. They relied on that emotional tether, but when you stopped revisiting it, when you stopped reliving your pain, they lost their last thread of influence, and whether they realize it or not, they feel it. You no longer need to rewrite the ending. You've moved on to a new chapter, and they don't even show up in the footnotes. The past didn't break you, it built you. Because once you stop living in the memory, you start living in your mission. Number 5, you break the emotional leash. There was a time when they could pull you back in with one message, one memory, one passive-aggressive move that made you second-guess yourself. You were on a leash, and the worst part, you handed it to them. They didn't have to fight for power. You gave it away every time you reacted, every time you broke no contact, every time you let their presence or silence determine your next move. But something shifted. You got tired, not weak, wise. You started catching the patterns. You saw the manipulation for what it was. You felt the energy drain. And one day, without a dramatic declaration, without needing to prove anything, you just let the leash go. You didn't announce it. You didn't warn them. You simply stopped responding, emotionally, mentally, spiritually. You cut the line, and with it, the control. Stoicism teaches, don't be ruled by your urges, the desire to respond, to be heard, to explain. All of it is weakness disguised as communication, but the man who can pause, breathe, and choose stillness over reaction, that man is no longer a pawn. He's in command of his time, his energy, his soul. Dark psychology knows this is the final blow, because when someone realizes their words, their silence, their chaos no longer move you, they spiral, not because they love you, but because they lost their grip. You were never the puppet, you just hadn't noticed the strings until now. The emotional leash is gone. You no longer flinch at their moves. You don't need revenge. You don't need closure. You just needed space from the storm to see who you were without their influence. And what you saw? A man they can't reach anymore, not because he's hiding, because he evolved past the need to be pulled at all. Number 6, their guilt has nowhere to land. When you truly let go, something brutal happens. For them, the guilt they push down, the part of them that knows exactly what they did, starts to rise. But this time, there's no outlet, no access, no emotional response from you to soften the blow, no message to deflect the discomfort, just silence, stillness, and space they can't penetrate. That's when guilt hits hardest, when there's no one left to dump it on. Before, they could shift blame, twist narratives, use your love, your hope, your desire for resolution against you. They'd trigger guilt and flip it to make you apologize. But now, you're gone, emotionally disconnected, unavailable. They have no idea where you stand, and that makes them sit with themselves, with the truth. And that truth doesn't feel good anymore. Stoicism teaches, we are not responsible for how others carry their consequences. You're no longer in charge of their healing. You don't exist to make their guilt more comfortable. And when you finally remove your energy from their life, they're left with what they tried to avoid all along, the mirror. That reflection, it doesn't lie. Dark psychology confirms this is where regret festers. Because when people can no longer access the person they wronged, the guilt festers internally. It turns into anxiety, restlessness, sleepless nights. Not because they miss you, but because they can't unfeel what they did. And without your presence to absorb the fallout, they have to sit in the silence and feel the full weight of it. You didn't seek revenge. You didn't retaliate. You just removed yourself from the equation. And now, the math doesn't work anymore. The guilt is still there, but there's nowhere to put it, nowhere to send it, because the man who used to carry it left the room for good. Number 7, you become emotionally untouchable. Once you let go for real, not performatively, not as a front, but deep in your nervous system, you reach a level of stillness that can't be faked. You don't flinch at her name. You don't overthink when her face pops up. You don't scan every message for hidden meaning. You're done reacting, done analyzing, done needing anything from anyone who failed to choose you when it mattered. You've become unshakable. This isn't numbness, it's emotional clarity. You've seen the worst, felt the chaos, survived the withdrawal, and now you're grounded, still, stoic. You walk into rooms with presence, not performance. You're not bitter, you're just untouchable, because the version of you that used to bleed for others has been replaced by a man who bleeds for purpose. Stoicism calls this mastery of the self. You're no longer led by reaction. You choose your responses with precision, or you don't respond at all. And when someone tries to pull you back into the emotional loop, they're met with distance, calm. The kind of energy that makes people uneasy, not because you're rude, but because you're free. From a dark psychology angle, this is the most destabilizing thing you can do to someone who once had emotional control over you. They don't know how to read you anymore. You're unpredictable, silent, strategic. You don't act out, you ascend. And the more you ascend, the less they can reach you. You've cut the emotional wires. There's nothing left to exploit, no soft spot to poke, no confusion to manipulate. You're not reacting to her breadcrumbs or her silence. You're not scanning her page. You're not hoping she watches your story. You don't care, and that is power. That's what makes you rare. You're no longer vulnerable to their patterns. You're locked in, focused, untouchable. Number 8, you reclaim your time, focus, and energy. When you finally let go, you don't just get rid of a person. You reclaim everything they were draining. The late nights spent overthinking, the mornings wasted checking your phone, the hours burned trying to decode mixed signals. All that time, all that mental bandwidth, it comes back. And what you do with it, that's what separates men who stay stuck from men who rise. You redirect it into the gym, into your work, into sharpening your discipline, into becoming someone whose life is so dialed in, there's no longer space for inconsistency. Because now, your focus isn't fractured. You're not spinning in circles. You're not losing momentum trying to manage someone else's chaos. You've cleared the emotional clutter, and in its place, you've built structure. Stoicism teaches us the value of attention. You only get so much energy each day, and giving it to someone who didn't value you is a form of self-destruction. Radical detachment puts you back in control. You no longer chase validation, you chase results. Every decision you make, every move you take becomes intentional, because now your focus serves you, not their memory. Dark psychology shows that when someone loses access to your energy, they feel it more than your words. Your absence becomes loud. They sense the shift, even if they can't name it. That gravitational pull they once had, it's gone, because you've rerouted your power into something real, into building a life that doesn't just function without them, it flourishes. You don't have time to obsess over the past anymore. You've got a calendar filled with purpose. You've got goals that silence distractions. You've got momentum, and momentum doesn't wait for anyone. You didn't just let go of a person. You reclaimed your most valuable currency, your focus. Number 9, you attract from power, not pain. Once you've truly let go, your energy changes. You're no longer chasing from emptiness. You're no longer trying to fill a void. You've stopped seeking love as a way to be healed and started standing as a man who's already whole. That's when everything flips. You stop attracting chaos, confusion, and inconsistency. You start attracting people who feel your stability, your clarity, your presence, without you saying a word. You're not looking to be saved. You're not signaling your wounds, hoping someone sees and stays. That era is dead. Now, you move with purpose, calm, clean, focused. People can feel it before you speak. The difference? You're not broadcasting pain, you're radiating power, and power doesn't need to be loud to be felt. Stoicism teaches us that only from a grounded center can we connect with others in a meaningful way. You've become that center. You no longer look to relationships as a rescue mission. You bring the value. You are the value. You know what you offer and, more importantly, what you won't tolerate again. That quiet certainty is magnetic. Dark psychology highlights a truth most never realize. When your emotional state no longer depends on others, you become unpredictable, unchartable. That tension creates fascination. People sense there's depth, discipline, and something they can't control. That makes them lean in, but not everyone gets access, because now you choose from power, not from pain. You didn't just let go of a person, you let go of the version of you that needed to be rescued. And in that release, you rose into a man who attracts not out of desperation, but from overflow. You're not looking for someone to complete you. You're building a life that invites someone worthy to join you. And that changes everything. Number 10. Letting go becomes letting rise. You thought letting go meant losing. You thought it meant giving up, walking away, accepting defeat. But now you see the truth. Letting go wasn't the end. It was the beginning, the ignition point, the quiet launch into a version of yourself that doesn't break when someone leaves. He builds when they do. The man who clung to false hope is gone. The man who stands in truth, just getting started. You didn't just release someone, you released the weight, the story, the illusion. You stopped needing what didn't respect you. You stopped chasing what didn't choose you. And by doing so, you made space for something greater. Yourself, your future, your focus. You're no longer reacting to what left. You're rising toward what's next. Stoicism teaches that what stands in the way becomes the way. The heartbreak didn't destroy you, it revealed you. It exposed what needed to be strengthened, cleaned out the parts of you that were too dependent, too distracted, too drained. Now you move different, think different. You walk with purpose, not pain, with silence, not shame, with power, not permission. Dark psychology confirms what they feel now. Not the sting of your words, but the void of your growth. You're gone, but not in bitterness, in elevation. They may try to reach, to reconnect, to re-enter, but they're not even approaching the same man anymore. The path you're on doesn't loop back. It rises, and you rise with it. Letting go was never about losing them. It was about finding you, the real you, the version that doesn't just survive the storm, but becomes the storm's response. This isn't a comeback. This is the arrival. And from here on out, you don't cling to anything. You command everything, starting with yourself. You didn't let go to forget. You let go to remember who you are. You didn't detach out of spite. You detached out of power. And now, you're not haunted by the past. You're not waiting on closure. You're not scanning your phone hoping they come back. You're clear. You're focused. You've reclaimed your time, your mind, your spirit. And that's what real detachment gives you. Freedom without noise. Letting go wasn't giving up. It was stepping into your final form. You left behind the version of yourself that begged to be chosen and became the man who chooses himself every time. Now the peace is real, the silence is intentional, and the power, it's permanent. If you've let go for real, if you've reclaimed your energy, if you've stopped reaching back and started rising up, hit that like button, subscribe to Stoic Blessing, turn on notifications, and comment below. My peace is my power. This is Stoic Blessing, where detachment isn't weakness, it's your weapon. Keep rising, stay locked in, And never beg for what you've already outgrown.